I believe. Is it? Okay. It's recording now. All right. So we're talking about the CSS model. Again, the CSS model is just basically a mental model that says that every component of a page or every component in a page, in a web page, is in a box. It's like there's an imaginary box that you have that contains this. Okay, so whenever you see anything on the page, any element on the page, just imagine that this element is inside a box. And if something is inside the box, you can shake the thing, you can move the box around. Obviously, if you move the box around, naturally you are moving the thing like the content as well. Okay, so for instance, let's look at this particular one here. So the first thing I want to do is to draw the box. How do you draw the box? You can just say border, the box is the border, and then put one pixel solid. Now, these are the properties. Whenever you have a border, there's a property called border, and these are the values. Okay, so when you have border, it can take in the thickness of the border, the pattern of the border, the style of the border, and then the color. Okay, here I'm just going to do. I'm just going to do this. Someone's this thing is on. Let me see. Sorry, can you please mute your? Can you please mute yourself, please? So we don't have. Okay, so you can look at this. So this is that imaginary. I'm just basically just showing it now, right? So I'm going to do black by default. It's black. How do we get this? Okay. Remember, the code for black is 000 or 00000. All right, 6 times. Okay, so if the values are the same, you can just make it 3. Okay, it's same thing. So you can see that you see the box, and that's why if I try to paint the border, the background, saying background, say EF. I'm using this keyboard. EF. Okay, so you can see EF. So I've painted the background with this color. Okay, but typically most of the time, obviously, you will not see you just have it, you not have the border, you just have it like this. Okay, so you just have the component like that. See you can see that the box by just basically thinking about this, taking this to be like, imagine that this is a box, and then adding a background color to the box. You can see that it appears this way. Okay, you can see if I move this like this, because of the size of my screen, obviously it falls to the next line. But you can see the box here, that's the box. Okay, now, like I said, now usually sometimes we have, depending on the design, we may have to like just actually include the box, but in other cases we don't include it, or we just use it to check that everything's in order, and then just do and then we remove it. Okay, so I can decide when I'm working on this, and I can basically just put this box, and so yeah, you can see the box. This is also inside the box, imaginary box in this case. Okay, so let's also put that box and see. Now, I always, of course, we have only H1 here, right? Only one H1, but I always discourage you from using the element itself. Okay, also sometimes for H1, of course, on a web page, you usually have only one H1 in the page. Okay, which is good. All right, which is okay for this. But usually you want to add either a class or an ID to differentiate it from other, or to distinguish it from other H1 that may be on the page. Okay, so that's why I'm going to change this. Instead of doing H1, Of course, as I remove the selector, the thing has gone out. The rule no longer applies to this again. So, but I want to still apply the rules to that same element. So I'll do H1. I'll do dot heading for a class, and then the rules appears back. Okay, let's also do the same thing here. So I'll do dot introduction. Okay, that is the selector. This means select any class you see on the page that has this value, introduction, which is this class. Okay, so I'll put the border also and say border. This time I'll do 2 and then dashed is the pattern of the border, and then for now I will do EEE. Okay, but it seems not to be working, so let's see why. Now we'll apply this to that. So this is introduction, and this is what? Introduction. So why is it not working? Okay, because I didn't put the unit here. So instead of just putting, I put just 2 instead of 2 pixels. Okay, so of course it's there, but it's not. I think let's just put something. So I want to put a red color. So what I'm going to do, I'll do FF and then put 00 for the red other ones. Okay, to make it red. Okay, so I have that here, and now I can also put a background color. Okay, this time I can't. Let me just put the same thing for now. Okay, different background color. All right, so this is like the imaginary line, but usually once you're done with, the way you actually want to appear with modifying the appearance, once you're done with changing the appearance to the way you want it to, to the outcome that you desire, you can remove the border. But sometimes you actually need the border too, because when you open some website, you see that some things are surrounded inside a box. So it's a border, so it depends. So now, but what I want us to learn here is how to work with this border. So you can see that there's a space between these two borders, this one and that one. There's also another space. So let's also look at this one too. Here I'm going to put a class and say and call it. Let me use ID in this case. ID. I call it workspace. Let's call it work. Okay. Remember, when you have ID, you use hash sign and then the ID name, which is in this case work. What happened here? Let's see. I'm not sure what's going on there. Let's what's everything falling now? Okay, let me just see. Do we miss anything? Okay, let me just go back to this and see. What's the problem? Okay, let me just see. Work. All right. Okay, so let's go back. So, yep. So we have the workplace. So I also want to put some kind of border on it, because I want to explain something. Okay, so here you can put a. Let me just change this then to USA. Okay. Okay, so here we have the work. So just the work. Okay. Now, why do we put this hash sign? Because we name this to be like we put the ID attribute. So whenever you have the ID attribute and you want to refer to it in your CSS, you have to use the hash sign. When you have a class, you use dot, the class name. Okay. So right now, let's put a border as well for the now the first thing you put in a border is the thickness of the border. this case, just make it a little bit light. And then the style, so make it solid. And then, so let's use green in this case. I'll put 0000 and FF. Okay, sorry, RGB blue. So that's blue. So you can see, and maybe we should use green as well. So I'll do FF00. Yeah, so this one is also inside there. It's not very clear. Let me put it too. You can see. All right. So what you just need to do, is the values, sorry, the property name, and then the type of value that it takes. That's usually what CSS is about. And also how to select the element on the page. Okay. So now there are two concepts now I want us to talk about. So the first thing I want to do here is I want to show you another way of including your CSS. So for now, I'm going to remove all of this CSS right now. And then once I remove this CSS, you can see that the effect is no longer there. So it disappeared from here. So yeah, so I want to take the CSS to another file. I call the file style.css. Okay, so I've pasted it here. Now, at this point, our HTML is not aware of this CSS. So we have to make it aware of this CSS. And to do that, what we need to do is to go to our HTML. Let me just remove this like this here. And go to the head. Now, instead of putting the style here again, we'll now use another tag called the link. So the link is a self-closing tag. So it doesn't have like the opening and closing, just a self-closing tag, just like the image, okay? So, but you need to define some properties. The first one we need to define is ref style sheets. Okay, and then the second one we need to define is href, which is the name of the file. So I'll do .style. Okay, because they are both in the same folder, so it's easy to just do. Once you just do .style, or even if you do a style, it will still work. Okay, so you are telling the HTML here that you have a file called style.css that it should take whatever is in that style and apply it to the page. Okay, or maybe another way, it means that you should just copy everything in that file and put in the head. All right, so that this HTML can identify so that the CSS can actually find the location of the HTML on the page. So this is one way to do that. So in this case, in fact, in most cases, this is what you would do, right? Instead of putting it together, so you just create another file. That's where you write all your CSS, and it's less confusing because if you make some changes in your HTML and your CSS, you want to sometimes it can be confusing when you have a lot of content. Okay, so this is one way, and this is the way we are going to be going forward. This method we're going to use. Okay, so back to this. Let's look at this. So I want to discuss a few things here. The first thing, you can see that when you look at this line now, this is just a H1, and then the other one is P, and then this is A. You can see this empty space which come by default. Okay, this is space between two elements on the page, two different components. It's called the margin. Okay, you have the margin. Okay, this is called the margin. So if you want to, it's another element, then this element and the page, all right, the top of the page is also a margin. So if you look at it, you see that the elements have some margin set by default. Okay, by just including the element on the page, it just has its own margin. So it gives some space between itself and then the following element. So this is a margin. This is what we call the top margin for this one. And then this is the bottom margin for this one. And also the top margin for this. And so on and so forth. This is the top margin for this one. And then the bottom margin for this. So just basically the space between the two adjacent elements. Okay, that's a margin. Now, so usually what we do is that because this space may differ. For right now, I'm using a MacBook, okay, and I'm also using a Google Chrome, okay. So if I switch to maybe Safari, all right, things may not, this size may not be exactly the same. And remember, when you are creating an application, and people are going to use it in different, we're going to access the application using different devices and different browsers, okay, to access your device. So you want your app to look identical. Okay, it shouldn't look differently on maybe Firefox or look differently on this. So it should be people should not get confused in case they decide to change the application or they get a new phone or get a new laptop. They shouldn't get confused with the application. So usually what you do is that you need to normalize these default values for the margin and the padding. So that is why what you usually do at the beginning of every CSS is to say that this is a universal selector. Say that apply this to every, you write a rule that applies to everything on the page by saying that everything, all the margin should be 0. See that by just putting that, I see it just close up those spaces, right? And see, let me remove it that I say it again. So okay, you can see the default margins, okay? So and these sizes are different for different browsers. Okay, so usually what you want to do is to normalize everything as well. You start from scratch and say, okay, I don't need any margin, so therefore the margin should be 0. Okay, and do 0 pixel, no problem. Okay, and when it's 0, when you have 0, you can put 0, you can put 0 pixel. Then you also have, that's also called the margin as the padding. Okay. Now, so let me move the margin again. Now that I believe you understand what the margin is about now. So the margin is just basically the distance between the space between the borders of two adjacent elements. Okay. So there's also what we call the padding. There's padding. This is a property called padding. Okay. Now, padding is the space between the element itself and then the border. That's the content of the element and the border. For instance, now you can see that this element inside here is actually touching, the content is almost touching the border. All right. So there's almost like no breathing space. Although here you can see some breathing space here. You can see that it's not touching here. The bottom is not also touching here, the top, but it's almost touching the left border here. All right. So the padding also may be different in different browsers. Okay, so that's why you also need to normalize the padding as well. So let's first of all increase the padding for the way you see what I'm talking about. So I'm going to just say padding and put like 20 pixel. Okay, 20 pixel. You can see now the padding, by putting 20 pixel padding on all the elements, it gives breathing space around it. Okay, because that's the padding. The padding is distance between the element and the content. Sorry, the border and the content of the element. Okay, this. Now by putting padding 20 pixel, what I'm saying that I want to create a 20 pixel size or space between the element and the border, both top, bottom, left, and right. Okay, so that's bad. So whenever you're creating an application, you want to normalize that as well. Okay, so that's why you always see at the top and say pixel. We don't need 0. Sorry, yeah, 0. We don't need anyone that is introduced by the browser. We want to control the look. We want to have total control on the appearance and the look. So there's another. Yeah, these are the things that you don't necessarily need to cram by the time you keep using them. There's another one called border box. Okay, this border box. Okay, so let's before I explain the border, let me remove it first. So you also want to set the border box. So the border box, the box sizing simply just says that anytime I give you the width of the let's say the height of the element. The height of this element is from here. Okay, I think I need to just remove this for now. Let's remove it. Yeah. So what height of this element is from this border to that border. Okay. So, but then what happens if I increase the size of the border to like, let's say, So what's the height of the element? Is it from this border like this? Are you counting this, or you're counting? So you can see that now the height of the element can be, somebody can say, okay, the height is from the border, the outer part of the border to this outer part of the border as well. But then now you can see that you also need to take into consideration the length of this. Okay, let me even make it 10. Okay, so what's the height of this now? Is it going to be, how do you measure the height? Are you measuring the height from here to there, or that's it, from the inner part of the border to the inner part of the, like the top border to the inner top of the bottom border? Or are you measuring the height from the outer part to the outer part? Okay, so to avoid this confusion, so we just introduce what we call the box sizing. And what the box sizing just does is that once you give it measure from the outer portion of the outer part of the border to the outer part of the border. So this becomes the height of the whole of this becomes the height of the element, and the width of the elements from this outer part here to this part. So you don't have, there's no need to do this calculation whether you, okay, the width, considering the width of the border itself and all of that. No, you also, if you don't do, like, if you don't put the box sizing, right, it means that the height of this is from here to there, and then the width is from here to there, that the inner, that's how you count this, you calculate it. Okay, but sometimes you also need to calculate the total height, which is then you now have to add the width of this and the width of that. So to avoid all of that, right, so we use the box sizing. Okay, so once you have the box sizing, you don't need to think about anything. Just know that, okay, that's the height of this from the black, from the so that's what this box sizing does, box sizing border box. And if you don't understand it much, no worries, but always just start your HTML and say your CSS with these three values. Okay, this one set to 0, this one set to 0, this one set to, so that you can have total control of whatever your application. So now that we have total control of our application, we don't have any of those default margin, all of that. So we can just come here and say and declare our own margin. So obviously this thing here should be, there should be some breathing space, right? So I can just come here and say margin bottom. Okay, maybe just let's say margin top first. Say pixel. So that creates this. So it's no longer touching this black line now, this edge here. I also need a margin below this, yeah, because it's touching too much. So it's I will just say margin bottom, and just say 10 pixel. Yeah, so that creates this margin. Now, what will happen if I do margin top here? Because this margin still has a margin top. So if I do margin top now, then I will then introduce another margin here, and then that have more spaces. All right. So let's try that and see. Where are we? Okay, so if I do margin top on this element itself, that's a paragraph. This is what I get. I'll say 10 pixel again. Sorry, 20. Okay, so as I put 20 here, now you see the other one is 10, right? So the 10 already, so if we just put 10 on this one at margin bottom, this one will also try to measure and see what is the distance between here and there. All right, so that's why if I put 10 here, there are no changes, right? Because the same thing that if this guy already introduced a 10 as a margin bottom. So, but if I want more spaces here, I just put like 20 margin top, and then it creates more. Now, if I change it to 20, which is margin bottom, of course, there's not going to be any change. No changes, right? All right, so you just need to understand the margin, because understanding this concept is very, very important for you, you know, in order for you to really understand, to be able to move the elements around and put some spaces around them as well. Now, this one, the margin obviously is 0 here because I've Yeah, so another thing you need to understand is the cascading, right? So even if I change the margin here, and I see I've changed the margin to 0, and I've come here and I put the margin top to 20. So this one now at this point, now is now overridden by this one. So now you override. So if you want to override what you've written before, yeah, a rule, this particular rule overrides this rule. So the rules that are come at the bottom, they override the ones at the top. Okay. So for instance, if I put here, I'll say background color. Okay, no, maybe not here. Let me do it on the body. So I'll say the body. I'll say background color. Green. Okay, but then I can see that the background color of this one is this color, still remain that color. Okay, because whatever comes under override whatever comes on the before it. So anything that comes later override whatever comes before it. Okay, so you see that in this particular case, this particular part now, this remains, this holds. That's how CSS works. Okay. So any questions so far? Is there anything you don't understand? Because you need to understand this concept. These are the things, these are the basic things you need to know. Yeah, in order to. All right, Benji.
Okay, good evening, Coach.
All right.
I was just I observed something here,
Mm.
and I just want to know if it's that's how it's going to be done. Like if you look at the body, you look at the introduction,
Mm.
each of them they have their own style,
Yeah, because often we have this is a style for
and
intro.
this
Yeah.
workplace. So is it that whatever property we want to change or element we want to change on the CSS, we have to bring it out, call it out, and put it under and do the formatting that we need to do.
Yeah, exactly. So you write the rule. So the first thing is you need to identify the element by a particular selector. So this selector, for instance, now that is you have A as a selector, the anchor element. You also have. So I decided to put it ID.
Okay,
Yeah, because the
okay.
IG now, if you put A, for instance, now if you use A here, right? So any other anchor element or any other link that is in the page will be affected by that rule.
So this ID is equal to work.
Yeah.
When we print, it will not show.
No. So that's it. That's the thing. So it's an attribute. So it's an anything. This is an attribute here, right? So it does not.
Yes.
It's the only thing that shows that I think between the opening and closing, right? Like I can see this thing here,
Okay.
there, right? The content. Okay. This is an attribute that it just for informational purposes. Like it gives more information about that.
Okay, like this ID is equal to work. Can I
Mm.
say ID equal to boy?
Yeah, anything. Like if you change it to
Then I cannot call it up and change the
yeah,
property.
but you just need to call it the name. Yeah. So if I come now, you can see it has disappeared. So if I say, let me just put imagine here. Imagine the 20 pixel. Of course, nothing. It's not reflecting here. But once I change this to the actual class now, sorry, what? See? Okay. So I can even put like 60 here. Then um, sorry, margin top. So that's you can see now when I put the margin now, margin top. You see, it's not really moving the element. Okay, but when I put okay, it's not affecting it. The margin is not affecting it. All right, the margin is not affecting this element, and that's because I remember I told you guys that two different types of element. We have the block level element, block level, and then we have the inline element. Okay, so one of the things you learn about the block inline level element is that margin and height, margin, height, padding don't affect them. Width doesn't affect them. All right. So if you want this to be affected by this margin top now, you need to convert it to what? To a block level element by saying display block. Once you just do that, you can see it falls off because now it's now being affected by this. Okay, but you can see this one's not, it works directly, it works. But this particular one, because it's an inline level element, an inline level element simply means that if I have another element here, let me say button, I'll say click, click, yeah. If I have another element and say click, okay, first of all, let me remove it. It's not an inline, it's not a block element. It will appear on the same line as the element, right? That's what how inline elements work. Okay, they don't occupy the whole width of the page. They just occupy their own size. So any other element can appear by themselves on the other side. But these ones, once you put them on the page, even if let me put another paragraph. I'll just put only one thing in the paragraph. Let's put yes. See, it appears on a different page. Okay, so if I put another, if I put, let's say, another button here, click me, it doesn't allow that button to appear on the same page, on the same line as the elements. Yes, sir. Because this is a block level element. What they do is that they occupy the whole width of the page, so that no other element can appear by them around them. Okay, they will have to fall back to the next line, fall down to the next line, or you stay on top. Okay, but you can make an inline element to behave like a block level element, or you can make a block level element to behave like inline level element, like just like what we have just done here. So here now, this is an inline level element. I want to make it a block level element, so that it will occupy the whole width of the page. So I just say block. See that? And once you have a block element, a level element, this works. But this does not work. Margin, width, and height don't work on inline level element unless you make the element a block level element by saying display block. Okay, so this thing here again is just an identifier. That's what ID means. Of course, this ID is just an identifier. Identity. Okay, all right. So that's basically how it works. So we just need to, what I'm introducing here is concept of the border, margin, okay? And then of course padding. Let's add a padding here. For this one, since the USA here is almost touching the border, so I'm going to go to the paragraph and add some padding. Now the padding, you can see once you start typing padding, you can see you have padding left, padding top, padding bottom, padding right, and then some other ones, right? But don't worry about these two, but this is the most important one: left, top, right, bottom. Okay, the left padding is talking about this one. That's the left. So if I put the padding left, I'll say padding left and put 20 pixels. It pushes it right there. So it creates that space of size 20 pixels before the element, okay, between the border and the element inside. If I say padding top, okay, let's see the padding top, which is this space here, put 20, right? See, it creates that space here. Now let's do for, of course, because this element does not continue to the right because of the space here. Okay, that is. But even if you put padding right there, it not really change much. Nothing will really happen. So I'll say padding right. Okay, if I put like 10 pixel, you can see it does not really change because there's already a default space there. Okay, but if I change this padding right to say maybe less 100, see, again now you see that this padding is the high value, but there is no space for this thing to move, so it just remains there. There's no space for it to move 100. It can't move because the width, this is the width of the element, and sorry, this is the width of the element, this is the height, so it cannot move more than the way it is now, because I also put this to be equal to 20 pixels. Okay, so there's really no need for the right here, so I'll just put the bottom. Okay, because we already have this space, so I'll put margin bottom, sorry, padding bottom. So just put like 20, and then raise that, so you can see it looks a little bit better now. Okay, now, but usually instead of putting all these values left, top, right, you can actually do this. So if I do padding 20 pixel, it means that both the left, top, right, all the padding, they are all 20, a size of 20, right? So I can also put two values. Okay, if I have two values, 30, 20. Now, what these two values mean is that this one is the top and the bottom. The top and the bottom are this one, and then the left and the right and the second one. So if you put two values like this, the first one represent the top and the bottom, then the second one represent the left and the right. Okay, so these things come just basically understanding these properties come by using them. Okay, so it takes some time, to get your way around it, but if you practice, if you look at, like, for instance, I would like book we're using, if you go through them, so the essence of what I'm doing now, just to introduce you, so that you go through and then seek those examples and try them yourself. It's important that you try them, because that's the only way. But CSS, I remember when I was learning CSS, first time I was learning CSS, it was I learned it for a couple of months. I got to the point I felt that, oh, the properties were too much. Okay, at the point I thought that maybe this thing is not for me. I left it for a couple of days. I went back because and then I continued. But the things that you just through practice, you have to just practice it and get used to it. You don't sit down and start cramming border. There was never a day I sat down and start cramming background color or cramming border. It's just because I kept on using it. And sometimes you have to, in fact, most of the time, I forget some of the things. So I have to go and open maybe Google on internet and then get the properties and then look at it again, go through the books, and that's basically just the way to. But you need to understand all these fundamental concepts. You need to know what a pattern is. You need to know what a margin is. I know the difference between both of them. Okay. There's also a very popular one, which is the border radius. Okay, the border radius is, so we don't have any. Let's just do the bottom here. So button. Now, so let's see how we can center this button on the page. Okay, so you have the button here. You want to put it in the center of this page. Okay, there are a couple of ways you can do this, but one very simple way is to use the margin. Okay, so if I do 50 pixel, also. So, why is it? Sorry, put in the wrong place. Okay, so the browser, don't worry about that. I'll just move this. So let's say you want to center everything on the page. You can say center Text align. So this is the body, right? So, and everything in the body, you want to put in the center of the body or the center of the content. Because if you look at this now, you see that, let's go back to our HTML. So everything is inside the body, like this. So by doing text align center, you're saying that everything you want to put in the center of the page. Okay, so we're going to learn how to position elements later on as well. Okay, but I want to just write some rules for the button so that the button will look like. You can see from here, let's see what we can do to the button. So I will start by saying color, put white, background color, just do crimson, and just use the color name. So yeah, so the font size. Okay. So by just increase, this is how you increase the text by using the font size. Okay. So you can see by putting the font size now, you can see the text as it's now larger. Okay. I also want to add some padding because it's, you can see now it's touching the edges, right? So I want to give some breathing space by putting some padding, and I want to put the same padding all around. So I'll say padding, say 15 pixels. Okay. Again, there's the other things I can do here. I can also curve, like I like to make my button to look a bit modern by cutting the edges. How do you do that? You do border radius. Now, when you do this frequently, it just becomes easy. Okay. So if I do border radius 50%, for instance, let's see. This is what it looks like. Okay. So, but that's not what I want. I just want to do cut the edges. Yeah, so it looks a little bit modern like this. So basically, this is just CSS. CSS just playing around with these values, and you can see now. Now that I selected this, now that I selected the button itself, see that anything I write will affect any button that is on the page. But if I say, if I do call this one say primary, and then call this one secondary. Okay. Of course, the CSS still works because it's still button. All right. But if I change this now to primary, can see no longer affect this one, I now affect this one. So that's why it's always encouraged for you to, it's only recommended that you use a class name or an ID on your HTML element so that you can target a particular element. Now I can now say maybe the secondary one can be, I can now go and write for the secondary. Let me just copy. I'll copy everything, got the same button, then name this secondary. Okay, but what I want to do is I want to change the background color for the secondary and call it yellow green. Okay, you see that. I see we're working on a different page entirely. All right, we're using a different file, and we're writing the command for the HTML. Okay, so the font size, you can, okay, we can even add, let's do some font size stuff here. So I'm going to do font size for let's say 20 pixels as well. No, not here. Yeah, an introduction. So you can see of increasing the font size. Let's change to 40. See? Increase the font size. So you can increase the font size as much as you want, but obviously it has to make sense, right? But we will now go and increase this font size to 140. No longer makes sense. All right, you have to now scroll and scroll and scroll, right? So you need to just put something that makes sense for your for whatever you're doing. And of course, it's now looking bigger than this one, which is the heading. So also again, doesn't make sense that way. But one thing we can do also, we can do the font size here. And maybe make it like 60. Sorry, 50. Okay, so you can increase all this in as much as you want. Okay, but you just need to know the values you need to just need to know the property. Okay, you just need to know the property. You can see how the big this is looking like a real headline. Okay, so yeah, there's also the font family, which I showed you guys that day as well. So let's go to, so I need, let's say I need a particular font. Okay, in Microsoft Word, you go and maybe, let me just open my Google Drive. Okay, so let's say you want something in, yeah, so basically just go here and choose whatever, right? Roberto, this is one of my favorites, Roberto. Okay, or Lato, sorry. So you can choose the font size here. Okay, and then you start writing hello. Okay, so you can just quickly just do here. This has been written for you, so Roberto, change it. Okay? So this is the font family. Okay, font. This is the font size. So we can also get the same thing here. So I want to get this Lato or this in CSS or my web page. Okay, because it's actually using the default one. So what I can do, what I need to do is to go to Google. I'll just need to go here and type Google font, which you've done before, Google fonts. Okay, and then click on it. You search Lato. You can see the Lato here. Okay. I like this IPM mono. Okay, this one. Oh, in fact, there are so many of them. So you can basically just select whichever one you want. Okay, so there are just so many. Okay, if you don't know the names, you can just scroll and just keep searching for the one you're looking for. But we're not doing this for now. So let's just okay. So and also Lato. I'll just click on Lato. Now, if you need, well, how you select this, actually, you can see that some of them are bold and you can see these values, okay? 400 italic. The higher the value, the thicker it is, that's the weight. You can see 900, you can see how it is. So sometimes you may need to use italics in your code. So anyone you need, just add them, just select. You need 300, you need this size, you need that size, just add, just keep adding. You know, I need this bold 400 with that. And then once you finish adding all of that, it's simple. Now it's already here, so you just need to copy this. So you can see the link here. There are two ways. You either use the import or the link. Okay. So for the import, maybe let's try the import first. I'll just copy this like this. Copy. For the import, I can just go straight to my CSS at the top of my CSS. Top of my CSS and paste what I copied there. All right. Of course, I'm pasting the CSS, so I don't need the style. All right. So just look at this. Once I've done that, then I can now come here and tell my anywhere. Okay, maybe let's just do it on the heading. Okay, I'll just say font family. What was it again? Lato. Okay, it's already there. All right, that's the lato. I can say the font weight because I remember I copied the one that is, I added the one that is 900. So I can now say font weight 900. Okay, I also copied the one that is what 100. All right, so they can see now this H1, but because of this, like if I put 100 here, see what it looks like. I'm sure you guys have seen things like looking like this on the page, on the web page before. So, so you can actually make H1 look very, very thin like this. Usually, usually this is what you may want to even do if the size is, whenever you have like size like this. Okay, I can also maybe the font weight of the paragraph just use like maybe 300 or so. Maybe that's it, 200. Okay, yeah. So you can see that it's not working here, right? Why is it not working? Because the font family, I only added it here. So if I want to work here, I have to now bring it here. Okay. So that's why, but if you want everything to work on the page, right? So instead of just putting it here, you can just put it in the whole body so that the body, so anything you have on the page there, it's gonna. So you can see how we have transformed the page. Okay. So just by playing around with your CSS, so you can decide that that's not the one you want. Maybe the other one doesn't matter. The IBM one. IBM. Okay. Okay. Yeah. This is it's. I'm sure you guys have seen things like this here. Maybe you want your page to look like this. All right. So of course you just select it and. Okay, it's already here, I believe. Which one is this? I place mono. No, not this one. So let's select. So what's this called? This is called indie flower. Okay. So indie flower, I can see it here. So I just copy. So this time around, I want to use the link. Okay. So instead of, or maybe I should just use this as well again. But this time around, I want to paste it in my CSS, or HTML. So instead of pasting it here like this, I just come here and paste it in the head as well. So you can see that it's already, yeah, as you're copying it, it added the style as well. So this is HTML. So we can go back to our CSS and tell our CSS that we need the, what's it called again? Indie flower. Okay. So since we have two words, right? So we have to use a quote. Flower. And immediately we have transform our page again. Look at what it looks. So looking like this now. Okay. So all these are things that they are just basically they're straightforward, right? They're not that hard. They're not really hard, really. Okay. So you can play around with Google fonts. Just choose any of the fonts you want. Because there are so many of them. There are thousands of fonts you can get. Okay. If you want this one, if you want the Chinese one, just basically anyone you want, you can make it work for yourself. All right, so that's it for today. Do you have any question? I think I like the other one, so let me just remove this. Put back that too with the size. Okay, it looks nice. All right, so any question? So
I
this
have a
is
question.
sorry.
Sorry. I have a question.
Okay.
What if some of this button now you want to make it to be like a drop down?
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So we did drop down when we are doing HCSS, right? Sorry, HTML. Maybe you were not here that time. Yeah, you can do that.
Okay.
Of course, you can do that. That's part of HTML. But of course, we can also. Where's my stuff again? Sorry, this is some Python stuff I was in earlier. I'm not sure what happened. Did I close it? Okay,
Sorry, but
right.
was it recorded so I
Yes,
can watch the video?
yeah. So let me just quickly show you. This is where we are right now. So if you want to do a drop down, just add a drop down, select. Okay. So let's just add a drop down here. Let's say select. So you use to add a drop down, use this tag name select. Okay, so it has opening and closing. Just ignore these ones for now. Maybe I should have put it on top since my screen is not that. Okay. Obviously, nothing is showing, right? Because I have not added anything. So select. Then once you do that, you need to then add the options. Okay. First of all, I want to comment out this. I don't want so many things in my this. See, I've added a comment here. But once you add a comment, the computer will not recognize, the browser will not recognize what you have there. So the comment is added by putting this sign here, this and that. But of course, I just selected it and then I pressed. And on Mac, you do command and /. On Windows, you do control and /. Then to just comment out. So now, this is where you put your drop down, right? So what you want in your drop down, you put it inside the option. Okay, you can see it's already appearing here. So I'll do this and put let me say London. New York, Lagos, Vienna, and Abuja. Okay. So obviously by default, you can see now if this is the first one, you look at them here. Okay, so that's just how the, but of course you need to make it look nice, right? But that was another CSS we need to do to be able to, for instance, one thing we can quickly just do is to say select, because I didn't use any class or ID, so I'll just say width 100%. All right. So by doing width 100%, you can see it occupies the whole. All right, but of course that doesn't really make sense. So let me do 50%. 100% simply means that you want to occupy the 100% of the parent, and the parent is the body, which is the whole page. So you say 100%, it means I want to have the same width to extend. So I'm just going to put 50. And so you can see. So you can always choose anyone. Choose that. Of course, we're going to really make use of this when we start doing JavaScript. Okay, so when you select, you see sometimes you can have like something you want to change this leading. Okay, just select Lagos here, and then the Vienna will change. This will become Vienna. So we can do all of those things as well. Okay, those kind of interactions. Yeah, but this is, yeah, and of course you using all these things we've learned to, you can make it look beautiful as well. Okay, but generally this is just how you add drop down, and whatever you have in the option, just basically part of the options in the drop down. Okay. All right. So any other question? Yes.
It's been a while we got your video, so
Hey. Yeah. So just remind me later, please. Like remind me if I
at
don't if I've
least
not
for
sent it before, just remind me. Yeah, things that
at least
after
for
the class, I
6 weeks.
usually have some things, and I usually like join some meetings and all of that. So and then after then, you know, just try and remind me so I can send it, because I know this
Okay.
is very important, so that you can go through them again and go through them.
Yes,
Yeah.
I will remind you from the beginning of HTML CSS.
Okay, all right. So I think I have the videos. I'll send them.
I
Okay.
even went
So
to
yeah, but
your
you can
page
see
to
some of these things we've done, and
your,
some of the things we have.
your
I'm
channel
sure.
to see.
So check it. It's not there. It's not there. I've not. Yeah. So when I send it, I will drop the link.
Yes, it's not there. I always check there.
Yeah. Okay. Just remind me. Sorry. Yeah. So you can see now that even if we have H1, normal H1 that we have is usually used.
Okay.
So you don't just see H1 and say, oh, H1 must be T. Always, okay, if I remove the class now, it will not affect it again. This is the normal H1, right? All right. So that's to tell you that if you are doing only just HTML, you won't really do it. You won't be able to get something that looks very beautiful. Okay. But once if you have some creativity and you start doing and add some CSS out of that, you see that you can do something that looks very nice. Still H1, but now we've made some changes to it to make it appear in a more visually appealing way. All right, so that's it. Any other question? How's the Python going?
It's been moving fine from my own end.
Okay, that's nice. Yeah, but all these things require a lot of practice. So
Yeah.
the more you
The Python
practice,
class is going well. Fine.
okay. Oh, that's good. That's good. Just try and solve the questions. But that's the way you get to your well, you just need to get used to the thinking, the pattern of thinking. Once you get used to it, it becomes like a second nature, really. The way maybe if you have those of you that did maths in maybe secondary school or university, when you see some maths, you just know that oh, you have an idea what to do. That's how if you also do programming and it's just the same thing. Okay. And the good thing is that this one is better than maths.
One more thing, please.
Yeah.
Last time you were saying you are supposed to be seeing how the effort we are applying. That means talking